What is up, everybody? It is a solo show. I'm Matt Monty. This is the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. This is the IDP Underground. Normally, I've got my partner in crime, Aaron St. Dennis. He is not going to be doing this with me for the rest of the season. You are getting your boy. Finally got a live show, and who doesn't love to hear themselves talk for 20 minutes while a bunch of people just pester with IDP questions? It was a great weekend. We're now 10 full weeks through the season. We are starting to get into crunch time. There is snow on the ground in the Midwest. It is cold. It is dark, and the games are getting much more intense. You guys know what we do here. Every Monday, I wake up after I have a long night's sleep, and I'm thinking and I'm dreaming about all of the wonderful IDP content, games, statistics that I've seen from the past weekend, and we try to put it all into just one place. It's little notes. It's almost like a notepad, but honestly, I just like to, it's a cathartic experience to just get those thoughts out there into the ether. But I could pontificate for hours. Any of you that know me know that I could talk for days. So I want to get right into the reason you actually come here, and that's let's talk some fantasy football. Let's talk some IDP. This week, we got 8 players. Most of them you'll know, maybe some of them you won't, but I like to think that these were kind of the standout performances for the week, or at least the performances that made me raise an eyebrow and good, bad, or ugly. And I'd like to start by reading what I put out this morning and then kind of breaking down why I put that out there. So we're going to start with Texans edge rusher Danielle Hunter. He showed us flashes of the old Hunter this week. He had 7 total tackles and 4 sacks and a forced fumble. I'm going to say it one more time. 7 total tackles, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble. He's lacked the consistency to be a starter every single week for me, but the stats this week speak for themselves, and honestly, for the season, they also kind of speak for themselves. But he's currently at 27 total tackles and 7.5 sacks. He's had all of his sack production in 3 games, and in those 3 games, he has had 16 of his 27 tackles. So we're talking about outside of 3 games, statistically, Danielle Hunter has just 11 tackles in 6 or 7 games played. Players like that, especially edge rushers, are the type of people or type of players that I just can't get behind. I don't want to make my living on boom bust players starting weekly. Now, I do like to construct lineups a certain way to where I can have a bit of a boom bust player as a secondary piece. But as far as building your IDP team, you can't put these guys out there and expect every single week to have 7 tackles, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble. And obviously, that's a big week for anybody. It's not just because Danielle Hunter is out there. But with edge rushers, you got to have tackle floors. And I wrote about Danielle Hunter this morning because he was a big name for a while. When he was in Minnesota, he was one of those dudes that was top 5, top 3 each and every season from the edge rushing spot. I don't think he's that guy anymore. He's clearly the second best option in Houston behind Will Anderson, who, to his credit, is having a fantastic season, both with tackle floors and sacks. But it was cool to see Danielle Hunter kind of turn the clock back a little bit. It's really nice to see these guys that get forgotten about when they go to secondary teams. They start to age out, and we just throw them away like yesterday's leftovers. But I do think that you got to point out when these guys can still play. And I think Danielle Hunter can still play. But I don't think that he's a guy that I'm starting weekly. And honestly, it's probably going to be matchup based for me with him. But you can't argue with the fact that he had one of the best games of his career. I mean, not many times you're going to get 4 sacks in a game, 7 tackles, 4 sacks. If you were bold enough to start edge rusher Danielle Hunter this week, you likely won your matchup. So kudos to you because you were smarter and ballsier than your boy. Second guy we're going to talk about this week, Tyrese Knight, the linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks, a guy that I have talked about quite a lot this year. Not exactly all the good stuff, though, but let's read the tweet. So, Seahawks linebacker Tyrese Knight showed up big time in the absence of Ernest Jones this week, compiling 8 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. This marks back-to-back games where he showcased significant IDP value. I was high on him entering the season, but with the emergence of Drake Thomas, his value's taken a hit. These last 2 games have shown us that when given the opportunity, he is a productive player, but the issue is how consistently is he going to play? And that kind of goes with all linebackers. You know, you can have these young second, third-year breakout guys, and everybody kind of assumes that the NFL is just like a ladder. You get to one rung, and then you go up to the other one. You go up to the other one. And that's kind of how I felt that Tyrese Knight was going to happen, or how he was going to ascend this season. But like I said in the tweet, Drake Thomas has come out of nowhere. He's been, and maybe not out of nowhere, but he was not on my radar at all for somebody that was going to challenge Knight. I felt like Knight was going to take that next step. And clearly, as a professional player, when he's in the game and getting that playing time, he has taken that next step. His numbers have grown. When he's had these spot starts and activity where there's been multiple snap opportunities, he has been a productive IDP, somebody that you can put in your lineup every single week, set and forget. But there was a 2 to 3 week period where the snap counts went down and he put together, I think, a total of 3 tackles in 3 weeks. And that's the most concerning part of this game. You have to have the consistent playing time guys. They don't all have to be green dots. I know everybody goes crazy. We got to have the green dot. Oh my God, he's got a sticker on his helmet. He is now the greatest IDP in the league. And yes, that's cool. There's 32 of them in the league, but I just don't know. I don't know why he's not playing. I'm going to break it down a little bit more. I got to figure out why he's not ascending the way we expect, but we shouldn't take away from the season that Drake Thomas is having. He's come out of nowhere. He was probably a waiver darling at the beginning of the year. But I do think that coming down the stretch here, Tyrese Knight is somebody you got to hold, because if the playing time was going to go away altogether, it wouldn't have come back. Now, when Ernest Jones plays, you can't put him in your lineup. But as long as Ernest Jones is out, you kind of got to keep Tyrese Knight out here. But while we're doing all this, I want to throw some questions up there. We got Tobias Reaper. Why you got to hate on my boy Knight? LOL, he won the week. I know. Look, I'm not trying to hate on the guy. All right. I don't think he's done anything worthy of being hated on. My problem is I wrote about him. This is a bias. I mean, you're talking to a guy that just loves drinking his own Kool-Aid. And unfortunately, this Kool-Aid had a little Jonestown in it. And Tyrese Knight, at the beginning of the season, it looked like he was going to do what he was supposed to do. And I say supposed to like it was planned, but honestly, he was going to week by week by week, let's get me 6 tackles on the floor here, maybe get 10 to 12 certain weeks, and then you feel really good. At the end of the season, you got 120 tackle plus linebacker in a second year, and you're feeling really good. When you get middle of the season on a successful team, mind you, that's another thing that scares me. A successful team that is making tweaks on defense, that's what scares me the most about it. That is why I am hating. As far as a second half breakout candidate, I'm hesitant to say that. Not because I don't think he can do it, but because I think the playing time is going to be what matters. And clearly they're already kind of up in the air with what they want to do. And that whole defense seems to be changing. And with Mike McDonald being the signal caller there, he is a defensive-minded head coach. And defensive-minded head coaches amplify IDPs, just like offensive-minded head coaches amplify fantasy football on the offensive side of the ball. And if a defensive-minded head coach is already taking snaps away from him, that makes me nervous. But I appreciate you, Tobias. Look, you are not alone. I'm not trying to hate on your boy. I've got a lot of guys that I'm going to probably hate on here. And just to keep up with that theme, we're going to go to probably the only hate that I have on this list, and that is Seahawks edge rusher DeMarcus Lawrence. This was a 3-sentence tweet. I'm going to read it verbatim. Seahawks edge DeMarcus Lawrence. He scored 2 touchdowns. I don't even know how to respond to this. And that's really how I feel about DeMarcus Lawrence as a whole. I've been telling people to trade him, to cut him, to do witchcraft, buy a witch on Etsy and get him to maybe have 10 to 15 sacks. Let's get him back to the Cowboy days where he was a dominant force. I've just been so wrong on him that this season I have kind of decided to just completely ignore the fact that he plays football. And I have done a very good job of keeping him out of any video content, any writing content that I've done this year. And what does he do? He scores 2 defensive touchdowns yesterday. You can't talk about IDP and not talk about a guy that scored twice. And I guarantee there's some sicko out there that started him in their lineups this week. I'm probably not that guy. I will never be that guy again. I've been burned way too many times. But when you're scoring defensive touchdowns, you got to be talked about on a defensive show. Got another one on here from John Montgomery, 2682. How do I feel about Tyke Smith? I feel like Tyke Smith has destroyed any hope I had that Antoine Winfield was going to be the best DB in the league. But right now, Tyke Smith, who we'll talk about here a little bit later, he's the best DB in IDP right now. He is DB1 in what I would consider standard scoring leagues. But Mr. Montgomery, I know that there's no standard scoring in the IDP world. But Tyke Smith, yeah, he's great. He's fantastic. He's very versatile. He's playing the box snaps. I had a video show with John Norton, the guru over at Football Guys, and we talked a lot about some of these big time players that we expected some seasons from. Jesse Bates and Antoine Winfield being two of those players. And the reality is they're playing deep safety because of their versatility, because of how athletic they are and how good they are on the field. And because of this, you're seeing other guys get the box snaps or get snaps closer to the line of scrimmage. And obviously, the closer you are to the line of scrimmage, the more often you're going to get tackles on running backs. Now, as far as the big plays go, Tyke Smith isn't exactly blowing it up with interceptions, but he's getting high tackle volume, high enough to be the number one DB in all of IDP right now. So I appreciate you, Mr. Montgomery. Love the last name, by the way. We're going to go on to the next one. We are talking about the Falcons safety, Jesse Bates, who I just brought up. In typical fantasy football fashion, Falcons Jesse Bates had his best game of the season, and it was immediately after I talked about him being a disappointment this season. We had 9 tackles, a forced fumble, and an interception against a Colts team that is red hot right now. Almost blew it. They did everything they could to blow that game in Germany. With the emergence of the 2 rookies in the defensive back room in Atlanta, Bates is playing a deeper safety role than we've seen him in the past, and the box score production has changed. He's still clearly an effective player when he's getting those opportunities, but for IDP, I stand by the assertion that he is no longer a must-start player at the position. And it goes back to what John's question was just a second ago. It goes back to that same scheme thing. If they're not playing in the same spot, the production is going to disappear. And if the production disappears, you're not going to be able to start these players. So I think that he can be a player if he's getting box snaps, and it looks like he got more box snaps this week than he has in the previous 3 to 4 weeks. He's going to be productive. But they've got Xavier Watts back there, and they've got Billy Bowman back there, and they're playing a lot of defensive backs in this scheme. And because of that, you're not going to get consistency. It's almost like when you've got 2 or 3 running backs and they're all having a committee. It's not to that degree because safeties are so volatile to begin with. So when you're adding players at the position with the volatility of the position as a whole, that is why I cannot start Jesse Bates anymore. He is not the Cincinnati Jesse Bates, and frankly, he's not even the opening years of Atlanta Jesse Bates anymore. But just like I said in the tweet, I said that he was bad. I said he was a disappointment. I went all over the place, and what does he do? He has his best game of the season immediately after because I just don't know what I'm talking about, apparently. We're going to move on to another player who I said was disappointing and then had his best game of the season. That was Zaire Franklin, the Colts linebacker. Colts linebacker Zaire Franklin gave us hope again. He gave us hope. How good do you have to be when your pace of 100-plus tackles is viewed as a failure? Franklin showed us why this season has been disappointing. 10 tackles and a sack was somewhat the expectation this season that we had with him every week, and he's fallen flat. Maybe the quick trip to Europe cleared him up, got the bad vibes out. Maybe this is an anomaly, but either way, it was good to see Franklin of old. And if you had diamond hands, if you had no other linebacker option to play and you threw him in your lineup, I guarantee you he helped put up a competitive week. But I do want to continue to talk about Zaire Franklin because there's a lot of stuff going on with the Colts. They signed Jermaine Pratt this year. You've got players retiring midseason. You had injuries in the secondary. You had a trade for Sauce Gardner. The Colts defense, they are building it. It's a building block team. They are piecemealing it. But I think that they have finally found a core group of people that they're going to work with. And I think that this win in Atlanta is a big momentum win for this team. That game looked like it was over multiple times, and somehow the Colts still came back. Daniel Jones is trying to regress. He looks like a guy that just can't give up cigarettes. He's trying to get off of nicotine. He's trying to get off tobacco, but he's just got to have that one more. That is how Daniel Jones ends with turnovers. He just has to throw the interception. He cannot stop. He wants to throw that ball in windows that he should not throw them in, but this Colts defense has bailed him out. And players like Zaire Franklin are important to this defense. Statistically, we're not seeing it as much. We're not seeing it the way you would want to see it. But at the same time, he's starting to put together weekly improvements in his statistical output. And I think the addition of Jermaine Pratt has allowed stability outside of him. So it is allowing him to play more free with less responsibility. Lou Anarumo's scheme is great for 2 linebackers. I don't see that stopping now. Zaire Franklin is a good linebacker. Jermaine Pratt is a good linebacker. And I think the interior of that Colts defense is going to be fine. Keep in mind, though, that DeForest Buckner did not play this past week. So I imagine that they were getting to the second level a bit easier against the Colts. And because of this, Zaire Franklin had more opportunities for tackles. Does that change when DeForest Buckner comes back? I don't know. I don't think you can really predict that sort of metric, but I did think it was important to note that a player like DeForest Buckner, when he is not there, that is going to be noticed by both the offense and the defense. So, Zaire Franklin, best game of the season, 10 tackles and a sack. What more can you want? He probably won your week. Next, we're going to move on to Browns rookie linebacker Carson Schweschinger, a green dot player. We love green dot players. Does any player have a case for defensive rookie of the year other than Browns linebacker Carson Schweschinger? He was coming off an injury, and typically with defenders, I tend to wait an additional week to see how they play before I reinsert them into my starting lineup, specifically rookies. But Schweschinger is making me regret that strategy because this week he was elite again. 10 tackles and half a sack for the young Cleveland linebacker who with each week climbs further and further up the IDP ladder. Schweschinger, he's good. When you have players that get hurt, I like to slow play him on defense because defense has a lot more rotational pieces than offense does. The defense likes to put people inside and out. A team like the Browns, I don't necessarily believe have a stable foundation, to say it nicely, but they clearly have found something in Carson Schweschinger that they want on the field at all times, and Schweschinger has proven now to be a player that when he is on the field, he's got to be must start. He was electric. He had 10 tackles and half a sack. 10 tackles and half a sack. This rookie has come it's not out of nowhere. I think most people, when he got taken by Cleveland and then the JOK injury happened, most people expected him to be a productive linebacker. But I don't think a lot of us expected him to be in the top 15, top 10 each and every week. And he has put together certain weeks where he has looked like a linebacker one. But Schweschinger is one of those guys I gotta tip my hat to. I really believe that he's not going to be like, I like Peyton Wilson. I'll use Peyton Wilson as an example. Peyton Wilson had a decent rookie year. It wasn't anything that made you write home. It wasn't anything that he wasn't taking Patrick Queen's job. But Peyton Wilson this year has been an unbelievable set and forget player, and he is clearly the linebacker to have in the Pittsburgh defense. Schweschinger right now, to me, is like what we would have wanted Peyton Wilson to be his rookie year in anticipation of what he is doing this season. Schweschinger is getting all of the run. Cleveland's defense does not have a guy that is going to compete for snaps. Nobody knows what JOK's injury is, and I hope he gets better, but it's neck injury, and I just don't see it. I don't see a guy like that coming back. It's a very, very high volume position for you go into collision every single time you're on the field there. It's a collision position. You're tackling, and I just don't think you bring a guy like that back. And Schweschinger is proving to them that they don't necessarily need to rush him back. So I think he's been great. I think he is the rookie of the year right now. As far as defense goes, as far as IDP goes, he's unquestionably the rookie of the year, but he needs to be talked about. We need to talk about him more, and we need to talk about him in the elite tier of defenses. Next player I'm going to talk about, Lions safety, Brian Branch. Coming into this week, Brian Branch was having somewhat of a disappointing IDP season. And while I believe he's one of the most talented players at the position, his value in IDP has taken a hit this season with the lack of box score impact. Yesterday, he reminded us of what he can be. 7 tackles and a sack and a half from the safety position is a nice little gift that IDP managers, and one that isn't exactly a shocker for Branch. He's a versatile player that can be used in a variety of ways on this defense, and this week was just another example of that. If he can remain consistent, he will get back to form. This was a positive sign, and I think we all needed to see it. Brian Branch, you know what he is. Safeties, they're volatile. We talk about it. But when you have those guys that are name recognition guys, they're name value guys, Brian Branches of the world, Xavier McKinney, Budda Baker at his peak, Jesse Bates at his peak. When you have these guys, they are the most versatile athletes on the field, in my opinion. I believe the defensive back position is probably one of the harder ones to play. And I think safeties, you have to be the most talented player to do it. You're in charge of stopping running backs. You're in charge of covering passes. You're in charge. You have to be one of the more athletic players on the field because you have to be big enough to take down the Derrick Henrys of the world while also keeping up with the Tyreek Hills of the world. So when you get a guy like Brian Branch, those guys, because of their versatility, are lined up all over the field. And sometimes that can burn you. Sometimes they're used as nickel corners. Sometimes they're on blitzes. We saw Brian Branch. He got a sack and a half. So he's getting opportunities to sack the quarterback. That, to me, is what differentiates him at the position. The ability to be used all over the field. And because he's being used all over the field, we are seeing his stats all over the place. So Brian Branch, 7 tackles and a sack and a half. He was one of my favorite defensive backs this week, and I think he's one of my favorite defensive backs in the entire league. And lastly, we are talking about a guy who we talked about earlier in the comments, Tyke Smith. Tyke Smith, the safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a player that I am falling more and more in love with each passing week. I've always been a Winfield Jr. guy. And when it comes to the position for this team, I just think I'm making the official flip. I'm finally saying, you know what? I'm Team Tyke from now on. Frankly, nothing else in IDP matters but statistical probabilities. They're not probabilities, statistical production. I don't care if you got the green dot. I don't care. That's one of the most overrated things I see all over the place. Oh my God, he's got the green dot. He's the greatest that's ever lived. It's important that you have the green dot. It's important that you have a good player at the green dot. But a green dot does not tell me that you can or cannot play an IDP. There are 32 green dots in the NFL. There's typically one defensive captain. Okay, there's typically one defensive captain, so one green dot on the defense. And not every player is going to have the opportunity to get it. And clearly we're seeing Tyke Smith has an opportunity to do something. He is taking the job in IDP specifically, not in the NFL. I'm not going to break any news here. I do not know that. But in IDP, Tyke Smith is the player to have over Antoine Winfield Jr. And it is because Antoine Winfield Jr., because of his versatility, because of his athleticism, is playing more and more down the field and in various areas. And you know what they're doing with Tyke Smith? They are setting him up in the middle of the defense, and he is a seek and destroy, almost like a sub linebacker. And because of this, we're seeing the stats go all over the place. So much so that Tyke Smith is the current DB1 in all of IDP. He is the highest scoring defensive back in IDP. And he's challenging in the top 10 of all players in IDP right now with this season. Who would have thought Tyke Smith? I can tell you right now, I've had Tyke Smith on many a dynasty team, and I have dropped Tyke Smith on many a dynasty team. I feel like an idiot, but that's what this game is. That's why we love this game. It is so unpredictable. You have to read these trends week to week, and Tyke Smith is just another example of why you have to pay attention to this sport every single week. So Tyke Smith, you're the best player of the week, in my opinion. Maybe you didn't have the best stats. You didn't have a DeMarcus Lawrence 2-touchdown day, but Tyke Smith has been the consistent type of player to win an IDP each and every week. First live show, I talked completely by myself, 23 minutes. It was like a filibuster that we are not wanting to do anymore, I'm sure. But all of you that watched, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Every Monday about 9 o'clock, I'm going to put this thread out here. And then every Monday at 7 p.m., I'll be on here talking about it by myself. So make sure you tell all your friends, get them in the comments, troll me, tell me you like my haircut. I did just get it done this weekend. Shout out to the barber. I just want to make sure that we all know IDP's fun. It's supposed to be fun, and it's not supposed to be predictable. If it was predictable, you'd have one person win it every time. So I appreciate all of you guys watching this. This was the IDP Underground on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. I am Matt Monty. You can follow me on X at MattMontyFF. Follow me everywhere. I write stuff on football, guys. I do it all. I play any kind of format. So thank you so much for watching this. We'll see you next week, guys. Thank you again. If I can press the end stream button, that happens to me all the time. Rookie move. What are you going to do?
Perfect.
It says it's still streaming. Is it still streaming?